Welcome to the live, Jamie. The green room.
It's Tuesday night. We are here.
I know we're just a little late, friends, because we
Yeah,
had to
we're
talk. We were talking about life trusts and
in
long
Kurt's real
term.
estate.
What do they call it? Longevity? Yeah, and then a realtor called, and longevity planning. Should we talk about this in the green room?
I think we should save that for the episode.
Or both.
I think we could talk about it in both.
I wonder if they listen. In the live stream, you can't watch at 2x speed.
Nah. So you can.
Unless there is a new trick on Twitch and YouTube, maybe that you can.
So you can get like props in. You could sneak props in that they can't see.
In between frame rates? Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
Yeah. It's like the Matrix.
Once it's recorded and it goes to YouTube and Twitch, then you can 2x, 3x, whatever speed it takes to listen to Kurt and Jamie.
Get through an episode.
Hey, I appreciate their honesty. The students' honesty when they say, "Oh yeah, I just listened to it like 2x speed."
There is a lot of pauses.
Do you ever 2x anything? I don't. Yeah. Like I listen to podcasts at same speed. 1x. Oh, yeah. It never dawned on me, like I'm not like in the Matrix, right? When they're like, "Okay, teach me jujitsu," right?
Right.
I don't go like 10x that episode of the podcast so that I can learn it in 5 minutes.
You're like, there's 12 chapters of jiu-jitsu. I'm going to do it in like that.
Yeah. But I suppose when there's so much content in the world these days.
It feels like we're listening to Kurt justify more of all the things. Like more stuff. Yeah.
We're at 178 now. This is 178? 79? 79.
79.
Yeah, I think 79. It's a podcast, people.
And Kurt is just catching up. He's just catching up.
It's been around that long.
Yeah.
There's a term for that, Jamie. It's called durable.
Durable. Haven't heard that word in a while. That's a good word. I like it.
That's a good definition. It's durable. So
just like our friendship is durable. Yes.
Durable. Endures. It is. Speaking of our friendship, which our friendship always reminds me that it is T minus how many days to the conference?
Ooh, we need to count.
We're April. What are we? 22. So now we have 6 weeks. 6 weeks to the show.
We're in like legit like countdown time. Yeah.
Which means I have to do this in the green room because I did not do it in a text. But yes, you're pointing at it. A new T-shirt needs to be designed.
Yep.
Which is a collaborative effort.
Yes.
And maybe some other swag, like enamel pins, would be sweet.
Yep.
Which I can handle. I can handle that.
Okay.
The T-shirt requires both of us.
Yes.
And the sketch, our sketch party. I did bounce. Did I tell you? We were talking about doing a podcaster meetup.
Yeah.
And our friend Chris in the Boston area, I bounced the ICA idea off him, and that's one place he said that crossed his mind.
Oh, okay.
So now what we need to do is settle on a date, because because people are planning dinners and whatnot with each other, and there's live. So did you remember what day we wanted to do? I know people really probably don't care unless they're going to see us in Boston, but this is the green room.
I need to look at the calendar a little more closely, because I do have, like, this is like a first time in a while that I actually have other commitments that I have to go do. So I got to make sure that I've got all that stuff squared away in my mind, because there's some things that are just, I'm not super clear on which day it is. So I want to make sure I've got all that right. And I also need to check in on that, also that other alumni dinner. And
I'm also looking at, well, I have the app now, and
your favorite,
because we got to look at the different evening event time, right?
Right.
Hey, what's this? This is new.
Are they adding stuff?
Night out at Harpoon Brewery. Is this? Yeah. Oh, this is more of a. I think you got to pay for that kind of action. Anyway, I don't want to. I'm going to get ourselves way off track if I keep looking at this.
Yeah.
But I will. So we got to pick a night. And
agreed.
And then I think we're settled. I think the idea is if we rendezvous, we can either walk from, say, Conference Hotel to the ICA and back to a pub. That's probably the way to do it. And
well, I think we will do that. But I think what we'll do is we'll pick the ICA as the rally point. And if people want to go with us to the rally point, that's cool. Some people might want to just meet us at the rally point. But at the rally point, we will have mics in hand. We will do some coffee sketch podcast talking amongst our colleagues.
Yeah, I think we're good.
And then we'll have beverages.
Yeah, and maybe perhaps, a new conversation ensues.
And maybe there's
like other architectural sights and sounds.
And maybe there's some napkins to sketch on, too.
Yes, ideally, yes. All right, solved, semi-solved. We just need to pick the night, and I'll hammer out some of the nights with our local friends that I know are going to be there, and then if you do the same.
I think it's less about the nights, and I think it's more about asking your local friends, like, here are the bars that we're seeing in this orbit. Where should we go?
Well, the thing is, like, one thing I'm running up against. So Chris, our friend Chris in Boston, who's an Entree Architect member, right? A friend in the Entree Architect. He's like, oh, well, me and a bunch of other Entree Architect people are going to go dinner. I don't remember what night we're going to do dinner, which then would keep them out of. Well, at least it would keep at least Chris out, because he is a podcaster too, so he would want to go to this thing where we're trying to do. So it's like, we're wrestling with schedules, is what we're
I'm
classic, the classic, So.
Well, that's why
I know. Anyone who's listening live is like, I don't give two.
The people who are listening live at this point are going, I could imagine hanging out with Kurt and Jamie, and this is exactly the way it's going to go down.
Well, this is what you get.
This is kind of what you get. Yeah.
We are the WYSIWYG. The what you see is what you get.
WYSIWYG? Don't you mean WYSIWYG? WYSIWYG.
WYSIWYG.
Yeah,
WYSIWYG.
WYSIWYG.
Yeah, I wonder if our younger friends.
Did you ever have PowerCAD?
I know what PowerCAD. I never used PowerCAD.
PowerCAD had one button.
But PowerCAD apparently is what I use now as Vectorworks.
It kind of became that. Yeah, it's true. So there was a button in PowerCAD, like one key. It was one keystroke, and you could basically toggle WYSIWYG on and off.
Oh, yeah. That's probably where I remember it from.
Yeah.
Because I worked for a teacher that used PowerCAD, and yeah, the WYSIWYG.
Yeah, that's the way. Yeah, it's like there was
Oh,
like you'd be like drawing, and you'd be like everything would just sort of be kind of like it's kind of right. I hope it's right. And then you would toggle on and off this button, and the screen would just change, and you'd be like, oh, line weights. Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, which it does now. Yeah. Now we don't call it WYSIWYG. Oh my God.
Well, and imagine me,
People are probably listening to us like, what are these old guys talking about?
dude. Because I'd gone from like a academic version of CAD learning, right? So
Yeah.
learned all the rules,
Did you ever use the board? The
I mean,
digital board with
they
the
had a
CAD?
board. They had a board in the
And then you were
CAD.
typed in all the coordinates, right?
Well, I mean, no. I mean, no, I didn't do any of that stuff. I mean, well, I mean, I did do that, but
Well,
not.
you might have held out on the draft, like the hand drafting long enough to where you didn't have to do that.
Oh no, I
But
had the
early
hand drafting.
days,
I did hand
no, but
drafting.
early CAD days, you had to tell it which direction to go.
Oh, for the lines, yeah. No, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. Like, yes, I
Unimportant.
I did learn how to do that because it was sort of like it was like when I was doing it there, like in the olden days, which was only like, 2 versions
20 years
before
ago.
that, you know, you had to type in all the coordinates. And so they made us learn how to type the coordinates,
Yeah.
which like
You know
immediately.
your compass, or not the protractor.
Oh yeah, it was like gone.
I
But
know
WYSIWYG,
I know my students that are listening at the live, if they're listening live stream, they're probably already used to this. When I was your age,
see,
conversation that's going
yeah,
on.
I don't, no, but here's the thing. I will say that there have been moments of late where, like, I was proud of myself for things that I knew and could do faster in whatever software package than other people, and had shortcuts and quick keys that other people didn't know existed. And so sometimes
I see where you're going with that. It's a dangerous territory.
it's dangerous
You don't wanna-
territory. Sometimes
You don't want to be known as the old dog that knows more than the young dog,
well, it's just like
or master knows more than grasshopper. I don't know.
well, no, it's more of, Kurt, you and I kind of entered a workforce, right, that you had to, like, regardless of what you wanted to do with your career, like regardless of where your aspirations were, the way that you made yourself invaluable to a firm to begin with was that you were a CAD demon.
Yep.
Period. End of story. Like, whether you liked it or not, like, you made yourself like invaluable to that firm by being a CAD demon. And I hated every minute of it. Like, I absolutely hated every minute of it. But I was going to be
enjoyed certain parts, not all of it,
no.
but some things.
Like, I hated every minute of it.
I enjoyed the learning.
But it drives me absolutely crazy watching some of my team work out some CAD problems sometimes when they don't even use the offset key. It's like the offset is like the way I think, right?
Yeah,
like,
offset's a master command.
Offset is like my favorite first quick key, right? It's like O, and it's not even offset; it's just O, because that's just built into the DNA of AutoCAD, right? So it's like, oh, and then it's like, oh,
Did
10.
you just say AutoCAD?
Yeah.
Now you're starting to put yourself in a different camp.
Oh, dude, like I'm not.
You gotta be BIMmy.
Oh,
BIMtown.
Yeah. Wow.
Different keys, different.
I know it's different keys, but you know exactly what I'm getting at.
Oh, I know. OF, offset. Oh, is it off?
Well,
OF? I don't know.
But it's just the concept of like how if you're working from scratch and you're conceiving of space, you have to create sort of construction lines.
Oh yeah. I actually just did that today. I did that today.
You know,
I did it. Yeah. Oh, we don't. This is an entirely different podcast. This is like the there's the sports, there's the pop culture, there's the coffee sketch, and then there's the CAD technology.
The CAD technology pain and
I think our friend Evan Troxel deserves that territory.
Evan's living in a realm of trauma that most of us do not need to. Yeah.
I think they often have these conversations on his podcast. But you're right. Offset Align is a good one, but that's more of a BIMmy tool.
That's a BIMmy kind of thing, but
yeah, offset's key. Trim and extend are like also pretty gold.
Yeah,
those are good commands. Speaking of which, this is probably green room worthy. Before we go into episode, is you sent me this LinkedIn post, and the little slide deck from the LinkedIn post.
Yep.
It's kind of what got me thinking what we were talking about. Yeah, because of technology and AI, and basically, if we're not the essence of it, which was something reshared, you said, by Cameron Sinclair.
Yep.
An old friend, is if we don't watch out, someone else is going to eat our lunch.
Pretty much.
Is what I got from it. And it's going to happen very fast, right? And I know I know you have certain apprehensions to the AI. I don't want to call them apprehensions, but you're a little bit tentative, and Kurt's waded into a little AI territory. But my point is, so I found myself instead of I watch a lot of YouTube, and I watch a little bit too much lately about AI things, and not just architecture AI, like image generation or whatever, but AI implementation, software building and things like that. And the point there is that these tools are growing or evolving so fast. It's not even taking a full year to move through one iteration or one generation. It's like 2 or 3 generations can happen in less than a year. So what your thought was in January is now 3 times more evolved, well, exponentially more involved by November.
Oh, for sure.
Which means, I mean, if somebody else grasps onto how architectural documentation is generated, within 3 to 6 months, they can have a tool basically churning out things that many architects, I'm not saying every architect, but a lot of the majority or what's the word? The mass, the critical mass, is capable of doing. And I'm not saying I don't have the answer, but it's growing fast, and I think ignoring it, stick your head in the sand is. And I'm not saying you do this,
No,
but a lot of people are sticking
no,
their head
I
in the
don't.
sand.
I mean, well, I
Well,
mean,
I know you
and
wouldn't.
that's
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, and it's I'll say that there's definitely I mean, I experiment with it more than you think I do. But it's I know. Shh. And well,
I
and
would not be surprised.
you wouldn't be surprised. I know. Well, I mean, and you're doing the same, and it's because we know that the technology is there, and it's only going to get more pervasive, and part of it is being fluent in it, so that you can make yourself relevant. And I think that
It's
that's the
back
whole
to what, like you said, about
back to the
becoming
beginning, right?
invaluable.
Is that like in the beginning, it was like no matter what you wanted to do with your career, like the path to relevance was being a CAD demon, because that's what the powers that be saw as value. Okay,
Right.
so efficiency and churning out information
Speed.
and doing it
Yeah.
quicker than anybody else, whatever. They didn't care how you did it, they just were like, wow, they're a demon on CAD, blah, 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 And so if you look at AI, it's sort of in this sort of same vein of how are you using this tool to become a demon in that sort of speed realm as it becomes better and more accurate, like you're describing, and able to do beyond just a level of efficiency that, and computation. That's the rub, I think, that the industry needs to recognize, because it's going to happen. I mean, it's machine learning as a concept for a reason, right? The machine is learning stuff, and we're training it to do things at a higher level. The thing that I say for myself as a reminder is, okay, how can I use this new tool to do these other things that are sort of, a 10-step task is now a 2-step task.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Like I'm happy doing that. I can use the 2 steps. I can still kind of think creatively and sort of alter my process to use the AI to do that 2-step versus 10-step. That's fine. It's just, what is that now doing as the higher level design thinking, which I don't think it's at yet.
Right.
As long as they're sort of still having that level of separation between the two things, then we're still relevant. But that gap is getting smaller as you're describing, absolutely. And then is the profession positioning itself to realize that? And then as individuals like ourselves who are, not, quote unquote digital native, to this whole world, how are we positioning ourselves to be still that level of relevancy to that curation of design? Because I think that that's sort of the key to it too. Because there's stuff that I was in a conversation today with, like, I think 10 other architects, and we were looking at something that was AI generated, and everybody had a very high level of skepticism to it. And rightfully so. I mean, it wasn't like they were all being skeptical because it was AI generated. It was like they were skeptical and they were pointing out a litany of things that were all relevant to the conversation. So I still think that there is a role to play, but it's certainly one that we cannot be ignored. Is, I think, it's sort of what you're getting at, is that conversation cannot be ignored. And if the profession or practitioners are ignoring it or saying, oh, it's still a little ways out or whatever, no, it's not.
It's also just it's not niche anymore. I mean, it's so far out of the bag.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's not just some fringe thing. It's everywhere. And so, yeah. So, it'll be interesting. I mean, these next, like, almost as fast as the semester goes by, it's like, wait a minute, I might be teaching these students things that they might never have to do ever again. So that crosses my mind. It's like, you know.
But I think part of it though, Kurt, is there's a level. There's still, I will be like, this will be a hill that I will die on for quite a while. Is there's a level of problem solving that still needs to be taught.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean taught in the sense of creating situations where you're having that dialogue about problem solving, so that students can kind of get themselves to that, or young designers can get themselves to that, or designers can mature in that process.
Yeah.
And recognize what that process is. I mean, because if it's just like beep boop beep WYSIWYG, you know, and we're done, you know.
Yeah. No, you're right, and I think that the students actually do want that, right? They're actually a little bit. They're more tentative about AI than I thought they would be.
That's good.
And so that, I think that lends to their curiosity toward being trained the way we were trained, and wanting to be equipped with the knowledge that we have to offer.
But I mean, I'll be the first to say that the training that I went through, there are pieces of it that are relevant today, but there are absolutely pieces that are not relevant at all.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, not even close. So yeah, I mean, I'm not one for saying, oh well, you need to do it the way we did it. No, God no, please no. I mean, but I'm still of the mindset that I have not heard very many people, you know, who have described as a mature designer the curation process of using AI as a design companion. Just not, you know. I mean, you telling me what program you used and what prompts you used and how many steps you did, that's not curation. It's not. Like, I can do that on my own. Like, I'm not learning anything from that. But I think it could be there. Like, that's the part of the conversation that I start to get curious about.
Right.
Like I don't know. It was funny. I thought about this recently because I was doing some, like, looking at old architecture books and thinking about, like, old professors telling me, like, you know, weird little versions of their reality. And one of the things that I remember seeing, I don't know who it was. I like, it's a little bit of a foggy memory, but maybe my first year in design school, I, like, went to a department lecture and somebody was showing 3D renderings of a building that had never existed, done by a famous architect. And they were purposely trying to, like, get a rendering to a level of photorealism that related to this architect's work. So they were, like, looking at it from, like, an architectural historian and the whole bit. And I mean, there's been plenty of people who've done that ever since. But at the point that I saw that as, like, a 19-year-old, and hearing this person try and describe why they were doing it. Like, not just focusing on the images that were on the screen. I could see the fucking image on the screen. Like, but it was them describing why they were doing it and the challenges that they found in doing it, both from a technology standpoint, but also from an architecture and a history point of view. That part I learned an immense amount of information, even though I still didn't understand architecture to the, at that point in my education. But it was them talking about their process, both as a tech renderer, right? But also as an architect, also as a historian, also as a theorist, all of those things. And them grappling with all of those things in a lecture where they're trying to describe it to an audience so that the audience can then in turn internalize pieces of that I learned some stuff from, and that's the part of this AI business for me. I was talking about like that AI business, get off my lawn, that's that's the conversation I want to hear.
Yeah, and I think,
and I know that there are people who are capable of doing
that's
that.
why you can't rely on it. It's not a replacement technology or anything like that.
Right.
So, yeah. So we're still in the green room.
I know, it was a total soapbox moment. I'm sorry.
It's a rant.
Yeah,
flipping tables.
F-bomb even. Jeez.
That's a green room. Where I think we're allowed one.
Yeah.
So you want to launch
yeah, we'll
this rocket?
Let's launch the rocket. This will be like a 30-minute episode, folks. Join us.
Keep it fire, JB. Oh, hey, Jamie. How's it going?
Welcome to my rant.
This is can we share rant?
No. We're not going to share the rant. We're just going to.
This is just your rant.
Just my rant.
Just last week was my rant, I guess.
Your rant. You were in a not a dark place, but just sort of like a.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyways,
where our green room, those that were following us in from the green room understand Jamie's rant. Banging on tables and flipping them and learning things along the way. So we have, let's see, I will save, let's see, what do we want to talk about? Coffee first? Do you want to talk about pop?
Let's do it in order. Let's do the coffee and then we'll talk the updates and then go into the sketches.
Okay. So my coffee, I'm just going to tell you what I got. Is I'm feeling, I guess, a little bit nostalgic to my culture.
Ooh.
So I got there is a local roaster, another local roaster, called Fireside, and they had and it was down at the market, and I thought, oh, I'll try that, and it was a Guatemalan blend of, well, not blend, but Guatemalan origin of coffee, and it's actually very it's a light roast, which has some. It smells like Berry Kiss of Rootless. Has this sort of blueberry-ish sort of tannic smell when you're grinding the beans and.
You were using all the words today. Wow.
I know. Where did I come up with this? It's probably nothing what it says on the package, but that's what it comes up with to my nose. I like it a lot. It's and again, the dumb architect concept. When I grind them in my little grinder, light roasts always are a little harder to grind. They must not, because you roast them less, I'm assuming. So the firmness of the bean,
Do you like the way you're
it,
describing this
it's
on the
harder.
screen for me is like as if you're churning butter. Are you doing this grinding by hand?
Yeah, I have a manual uh, uh, a bean grinder, but
Is
it's
this
not
like
battery. It's
hmm,
manual. I got a handle, and you know,
I'm following what manual is. Yeah.
because I use French press. I use a French press. I don't do Mr. Coffee. I wouldn't. I'm not opposed, but I have a French press,
And
so I
how
do
does
one cup at a time.
I okay. All right.
Yep.
That's a
So
lot of that's a lot of meditation in that sort of
I have a whole system. I wake up.
I can tell.
I turn a light on. I feed the dog, but I open the blinds. I I actually, let's see. I feed the dog, then I turn, and then I boil the water on the stove, and then I start grinding. I let the dog out. I'm still grinding, and then I bring the dog back in, and then I have my grind, and then I put it in the French press. Then a couple more minutes, the water is hot. Pour it in the French press. Go sit down. Wait for it to steep. Dog jumps in my lap. I can scroll through my social media and drink my coffee. It's my whole
Okay.
morning routine. That's
This
my
is
routine.
beautiful. Like it's beautiful. Like we all were there. You painted this beautiful picture, and this isn't me trying to like take a pin to that like bubble, but bear with me as I ask you a question, which I think I already know the answer to. So, someone who's very concerned about the planet, as you are, it is Earth Day. It sounds like you maybe have a gas stove.
Hmm.
Do I need to talk to you about electric? Maybe.
I didn't. The house came with the gas
Okay.
stove.
I'm just okay. I'm just
I do like the gas stoves better than electric stoves, though.
see
I've
see
had,
this is
I've had both.
yeah.
Anyway, I know I can
Anyways,
live with
okay.
I can live
Okay.
with electric.
Okay. I'm just pointing that out. Not like I said, not it was like the pin was out, but
Yeah,
I
I know.
didn't yeah.
It's not a mandate around here, these parts, so
Well, I mean it's not gonna be a mandate for anybody anymore. I mean, but
drill, baby, drill. Uh,
anyhow.
Kurt needs his coffee. I sound
Appar-
so sounds terrible.
Apparently.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
What about you?
Woo. So
Speaking
speaking
of
of speaking of coffee, in sort of in the same vein, unbeknownst to me, after Kurt describes his whole morning routine for me,
planet killing, yeah.
yeah, planet killing, let's go for zero. But the yeah, so I had still in reserve some snake oil.
Mm.
So that's what like I got out yesterday and then did again today, ground up some beans. Not I used the electricity and then made myself a nice pot this morning before work.
How unsustainable of you.
Yeah.
You used an electric grinder.
Electric grinder, you know.
and an electric coffee pot,
Yep.
and you're over here breaking me down for a little bit of gas heat to a
Little
pot of
gas.
water.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I was manually grinding all my
Hmm.
beans, steeping my. Oh, all right.
But it was
Anyway,
this. But it was the snake oil, so
yeah, that's good stuff. I like that one.
can only be bought.
All right, current events, buddy.
Yep.
For those that are watching or listening at a later date at 2x speed,
Boom.
I gotta get it in frame.
I think you
This
need to
is
frame it.
this is issue 2. It only took them 2 issues. So this is the Coad zine. It's a new zine by our students at LTU. And this was taped to my door. And I was like, wait a second. That logo looks familiar.
Well, and I have to say that when you sent it to me, I was like, of course, it can, immediately resonates in like, there might have been a tear, right? But I love the fact that not only is it the image, but it's also purposely like zoomed up and
Oh yeah,
interestingly,
it's a little cropped
kind of
in. Yeah.
croppy, yeah, it's so yeah,
And inverted too. Or black white inversion.
it's so like yeah, I just
I think it's cool. I'm taking it as a flattering note,
it touched my heart. So
and I shared it with you. Yeah, and then I wanted to bring it up on the podcast so that all the students that are listening know that, we feel the love.
there might have been many a stencil or Xerox, collage in my past. So I,
Oh yeah,
I,
yeah, zines are dear to Jamie's heart. Yeah.
yes, very much so. So
Zine culture. Yeah, I like it. I think it's cool that they're publishing, so they use this so it's 11 by 17 format, right? And they fill it both sides. So they're very frugal, which is all true to zines culture, right? Being frugal about your media consumption.
so also access to the copy machine.
Oh yeah. Well, I believe they're allowed black and white 11 by 17s free of charge.
See, smart.
So yeah. It doesn't expense added cost. So if they did it in color, it would cost some money. But
Yep.
yeah, hey, don't need color. You got 2 colors in black and white. Look at our logo right there in the upper corner of the screen, black and white. Look at that T-shirt. But anyway, yeah. So I just want to share that with you on the episode, so we can shout out to our friends at Coad.
Yeah, like so we've checked the box on been in someone's syllabus.
Yeah, and then hat tip, right?
Hat tip,
Tip the hat.
student zine.
Notice.
Yep. Love it.
So yeah. So that's a highlight of the week. Or no, when did that come out? End of last week.
Well,
But
I mean, you sent it to me when you got it, so yes. But yes, all
highlight
good.
of the week. So, oh, I guess it's sketch time.
Sketch time.
I got a surprise. I was gonna surprise Jamie. I'm gonna
Let's
populate the screen. I think I'm gonna land on this one. Well, we could start here. Well, let's just do this.
we've been drawn. Jamie's been drawn. Yeah.
Jamie's done well. Kurt's been AI in,
Yeah.
but sketch wise, although I have been, there's nothing published yet, but I've got some stuff in the cookbook, sketchbook. But the I liked this one. Also, you placed this one with some music too, from my recollection, which is Rage Against the Machine. But I liked this sketch because of the building itself, right? And so it's a lightly gestured sketch. Not a lot of render, but a lot of depth, in my opinion. Right? There's not a heavy texture, but a lot of three-dimensional depth to the sketch, which I liked. So it accomplishes a lot about the 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 essence of a building, which remind me again, and all our friends watching, which particular this is. I'm drawing a blank already. Which building is this?
This is the Liberty Bell Center.
Right, which is Bolin Sawinski. Right. Yeah, that's
Yes,
right. Right.
correct.
Yeah, because you were recently in Philly, right? So this is
Yeah.
part of your
So
Philly
yeah.
trip.
So this is So for folks who've not been to Philly, but um, I think this is a great sketch for tonight and sort of kind of where we are in sort of our nation's history. So happened to be in Philly for a national conference, Main Street America, which is part of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, has an annual conference. It was in Philly this year, and as part of it, joined a lot of architect and designer colleagues who do similar things to what I do here in Texas, but in other states, for a pre-conference. So we go in before the main conference and then do our architect thing. And so one of the things that one of the days of that sort of pre-conference, sort of the weekend before, um, was really early start to the morning. We did a whole session at the Museum of the American Revolution, museum I hadn't been in before. Kind of a fabulous location, it turned out. Very gracious hosts. It was great for us. Had a cool conference room to be in and great view of the city. But on the walk over there, I left purposely early because it was super early. We had a really early start, and I was like, oh, and I kind of map it, and I realized Independence Hall is on my way from my hotel. That means I'm going to pass by Independence Hall, but also where the Liberty Bell is. So again, for folks who haven't been to Philly, the Liberty Bell that everybody knows was in the tower, rang, 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 is not in the tower anymore. It is across the street in this pavilion space that both preserves it, protects it, also sort of tells a really good narrative history of the goings on related to the bell, but also to the events unfolding at Independence Hall. It's run by the National Park Service, as Kurt said. It's a modern building, and what's interesting is this aperture that you're seeing on the screen of the glass facade and sort of this superstructure that sort of almost seems to be reaching out, and it seems to be reaching out from the sketch, is the direction of the position of this glass, the positioning of the building on the site is purposely at an angle so that it's pointing directly at its original location. So the bell is looking at where it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And very deliberately done. It's a super subtle design move that somebody who, maybe isn't sort of, kind of realizing what this building is doing, as they're walking around in sort of the plaza grounds, might not completely get it. But when those folks go inside that pavilion and see that Liberty Bell and stand in that space, they will, like a camera, will literally see the bell pointing at the tower at Independence Hall. And I think and at there's that aha moment that so many visitors, I imagine, get from that experience. That is probably super powerful. Myself as a designer, as an architect, kind of, it's like I already like skipped to the end, of the story when I sort of see the building and kind of what it's doing on the site. But I wanted to capture this sort of sketch early that morning where there was no one there. Everything hadn't opened yet. It's just me and a bunch of National Park Service people kind of wandering around in the plaza. So I was able to sketch the majority of this on site and then sort of finish it up, before I got a coffee.
The actually, it's a great oh my. I just wanted to do a little graffiti on the sketch there. Heart our NPS staff that do their jobs and love their jobs. But I've been there too. I've been to Philly a couple of times, or well, more than a couple. But my last trip of like 2020, right before the old pandemic. No, 2019 was 1 year prior. But the I got to walk through, the whole sort of sequence of movement through the little exhibit they have with the Liberty Bell is pretty cool. And then you have that space, the sort of con, con contemplative space interior. But yeah, experiencing it from the exterior is cool too because of the way it's designed. And so you don't necessarily have to go through the whole sequence of the museum to still get a sense of kind of the main event, right? But you bring up a great point about the idea of orientation. It's something I've been trying to impress upon my students in studio lately, right? As we're 2 weeks from final submission, is I think this orientation toward its original location and the tower is quite literal, right? It's physically pointing at a location, but sometimes that is not cliche, right? Sometimes that is the move, right? Is creating that connection, right? Beyond extending beyond your design space to another space and orienting a building to a significant point. And so I'm trying to teach the students to think, okay, so the building exists and you put it on the site. So what happens at the edge of the building beyond that edge, right? So you spend a lot of time talking about the interior workings. Now put it on the site, and how does that impact the spaces outside of the building, and how do you address
Well,
the
I mean,
site?
how many
Yeah,
times? Yeah, I mean, how many times has somebody like said to you, whether in a just casual conversation or a client meeting or in a student situation, like, I'm interested in, bringing the outside in or bringing the inside out, and sort of that transparency, that connection to, to another space. And I think that this is exactly what you're describing. It's that edge condition and that opportunity to look out, and you're kind of creating that framed vignette. But I think that what struck me this time, because I've been here before, is that standing at it, and I tried to capture it in the sketch as best I could, was just that the building itself, like from the outside, is literally like
yeah, right.
dissolved. Like, there's pieces of it that are appear almost unfinished in a
Yeah,
sense, to really kind of exaggerate that connection, that you're talking about. Like, how are you connecting this space to that space? And I thought that that was like far more powerful for me this time than it had been in previous visits. And I think it's some of that's a story. It's a storytelling opportunity, for us as designers, but also conceivably for somebody who is in that space and sort of trying to connect themselves to all the things that they're experiencing.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's this sort of fragmentation, the dissolving, the sort of implied lines that it's extending past the boundary of the corner, right? Yeah. So it's another thing too. It's like, yeah, the way you treat the meeting of wall roof, two walls together, and wall and roof, and then wall and ground, right? Like how these things sort of interact with each other because they serve different purposes, right? Walls, roofs, and floors all do different things, and so they don't you don't necessarily build them the same way. And then how they can be used in different ways, right? With gravity and so on. And yeah, so yeah, it's kind of a fun. It is a nice building. And I was just thinking to myself, like, it's fun. Second year is quite a pivotal time. I'm teaching a second year studio, right? So I remember back to my second year when they're just starting to click, and I can start to see that with a good handful of my students too. Is like things are clicking, right? And it's not
Well,
all perfect.
it's
Yeah.
exposure. Yeah, I mean, it's exposure, and it's both exposure in the problems that are being set in front of them, but also their reactions to it. And for them, hopefully for themselves, is realizing, wow, I never thought I would come up with that.
Hmm.
Like that aha
Hmm.
moment, is kind of special. And even if it's not fully realized, I mean, like you're like, even 6 months from now, when they look back at something they did, they'll be like, I could have done that better, or I would have done that differently, or whatever. Everybody does that. Like we're still doing that. But I think it's also sort of finding those parallels to other things. Is in Philly, a parallel for me, probably my favorite building or favorite design is the Ben Franklin House by Denise Scott Brown and Robert Venturi's office. Because I think that interpretation on that site is extremely powerful as a design move. And I don't think I sketched it this time, but it's I visited it, kind of stood there for a really long time, kind of talking about it with my colleagues that I was traveling with. As from a historic preservation point of view, if you think about things like a timeline, and you've got, I'm going to um, preserve things. Like I'm going to preserve them, like I'm putting them in this glass case, and I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm making sure that 200-year-old wall was like, I'm preserving it as and just keeping on preserving it. And then you stretch that out across the 4 treatments that the Secretary of the Interior standards encompass. The other end is, if you can't preserve it, right, you're reconstructing it. You have enough documentation of this amazing, important historic landmark. It's so important. And we've got pictures, or we've got drawings, or we've got accounts and oral histories and blah, blah, blah. And we know how to reconstruct it. And it's so important that we have to reconstruct it, right? Oftentimes it's not a full reconstruction, it's portions of a building, but you get the point. 2 different ends of the spectrum. Well, when I was in school, the way this Venturi Scott Brown project for Ben Franklin's house was discussed was, what if you took reconstruction just one more step, and it became interpretation? So when does reconstruction, because it's new, when you're reconstructing something, it wasn't there anymore, right? It's on that historic preservation timeline, but it's all new stuff, right? If you take that one more step and you're at the bleeding edge of reconstruction, are you really interpreting a site?
Hmm.
Are you bringing your own self as a current designer, architect, historian, whatever, to the project, and are you interpreting the things you want to leave behind for the next viewer? And in that interpretation, do you have some latitude? You know, what's important in that storytelling. And so I think I think what they did on that site is just, you know, has a level of perfection to it that's amazing in sort of making that provocation as a designer, but also dealing with this, you know, something that is so sacrosanct, you know, historic preservation and sort of these principles, um, and kind of putting themselves at that very end of that timeline. um, I think it makes for a really interesting discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The are you? I'm sure you're familiar with Sphere Fen, right? And there our friends at Archie Marathon, you know, Kevin and Andrew visited. They on one of their recent episodes, if you watch on the YouTube Archie Marathon, they visited a Sphere Fen building, and I hadn't thought of I when I was in I go back to second year, right? And you look at some books because super underrated, kind of like Carlos Scarpa. We probably talk about them in a very similar mindset, but kind of what you were talking about is this, you know, in a heritage or historic preservation aspect, the the that one step toward interpretation of how to negotiate the 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 preserved origins of the building and modernizing it with new program or you know, materials that respect, and you know, that is not easy to accomplish in any project, but it's yeah.
but it's really the challenge that as you're talking to your current students, regardless of what year they're in, to me that's the challenge of our day. Like, you know, moving forward
Hmm.
is how, you know, how do we look at heritage? You know, not just from a like, you know, George Washington slept here kind of heritage, right? But sort of a cross cultural heritage, and then at the same time also kind of an ecological
Right.
heritage, that we have this sort of environmental imperative to the buildings that we already have built that have outlived their usefulness for whatever reason, but they're still there. Can we reinterpret them and at the same time, you know, speak to this notion of heritage, but also be inventive? You know, can we bring those damn design skills to the fore and let us do our damn job?
Yeah.
And and I think that that's the part that I would love students to see as the opportunity, you know, as young designers, young professionals, older professionals, everybody, kind of just developers, whoever, is, you know, it's not why not, it's a what if.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. I'll borrow that for Friday. The what if versus why not. Yeah. No, I think well, I think the conversation can be this is one which we have often, which is one that doesn't end with the end of the episode. It will resurface at a future date as we sort of weave the narrative because it will come back. We've done this many times, and I think it's very interesting. You know, for me at least, right now, we're approaching the very end of a semester, which is always the stressful crunch time. But as the students sort of button up and tie their concepts together, it's a good talking point to sort of showcase some of the aspects we talked about tonight, like with the um, Liberty Bell, certain literal or lyrical connections, and then um, you know, tectonics and those techniques that architects have. So anyway, I again, being not a great goodbye, but thanks, Jamie. It's been fun to unpack a little bit of your visit with the Main Street program to Philly.
Buddy, if you didn't know, if you figured out how to like close an episode and say goodbye or goodnight or whatever, like I would be like, has Charlie slipped into this
The AI.
episode? And like, is he? Yeah. So no, it was fun. Thank you very much.